Hey YouTube, it's been a while. It's Dawn and Ivy. We're here with Writers and Recs. We are going through a little bit of a bump right about now, so unfortunately, we won't be able to get to the adaptations um, video that we wanted to get to last time we were here, but that will be the next one, we promise. By hook
I
or by
have
crook,
so
that's
many feelings about Harry Potter adaptations. I can't even.
and I just want to share my really good adaptations. So
Well, I love Order of the Phoenix as a book so much. It's so disappointing, but I do have good adaptations too. But
yeah, but we're gonna put a pin in that until next week. This week though, so because it's just Ivy and I, we're gonna do a somewhat shorter video, and we are going to talk about a topic that is favorite of ours, and we will probably revisit this in October. But both of us write paranormal, and we really don't care. We just love vampires. Okay, so one of my favorite the whole thing with vampires, I love the myths, I love the legends. Not too into the gore fest, which is one of the reasons why I don't really do horror, because especially now, because a lot of horror to me it comes across as it just wants to be gore porn. Um, but I just love the mystique. I will say that Gary Oldman, pardon the pun, but Gary Oldman killed as Dracula, in my opinion. Just saying. Um, Of course, we love our snarky, wonderful Spike.
yeah, we
Yeah.
do.
This is a Spuffy channel. I don't even
Yeah,
know
it
if
is.
I don't even know if Abby is down with Spuffy like that, but we're declaring it. It's a Spuffy channel. Um, let's see other vampires. The vampires in True Blood were nah. I do love Russell Edgington. I love him to death. It's the other vampires that I'm like, I could take him or leave him.
I didn't watch a lot of True Blood. I watched the first two seasons, and I think we got to like Naiads. Like, that's too much stuff already. I mean, of the two, I liked Eric Northman more than Beale, but I might have also not liked Beale because she said Beale like that, and I was like, "This is oh, Anna Paquin, you're from Canada. This
Deal.
is not working." Beale, so
No,
bad.
no,
Sorry.
my biggest problem with Bill, my biggest
Beale.
pro my biggest problem with Bill. I'm sorry. I understand that way back when in the 20s in the age of Old West during the Civil War. I understand that you lived a hard life. You cannot in any way, shape, or form and tell me that a hard life has aged Beale, who is supposed to be 29 years old, to look like 60-year-old Stephen Meyer.
Well, he wasn't 60 at the time.
N-
He's not now. I know
but
of.
he, well, he would he well, okay, I do apologize. I don't know exactly how old he
He
is,
looked older than 29.
but he did look way older than 29. There was no amount of no,
Yeah.
no. Eric Northman, you could tell me that he's 29, but you could tell me that that actor, I'd believe, yeah, 29, yeah. Well, that's because Alexander Skarsgård is also hot as fuck, but still. Oops, sorry. Um, I try to keep the cursing to the minimum, but
Yeah, I know. YouTube. But
my
yeah,
bad.
I also forget and curse, so it's fine.
Um, let's see.
I have a confession that I have watched a lot of the Vampire Diaries. Not all of it in order, but I watched the first couple seasons and then watched like the last two once it got to Netflix. So I have like a
Huh.
middle hole in the middle where I don't know much about it. And like the show is fine. I I like it fine. I'm not like super married to like Stefan or Damon.
Stefan or
They're
Damon.
fine. I mean, I like Damon. I like better, but I could take or leave them. I mean, and then of course I watch most of the originals, and it's a more interesting show. It's a darker show. It has a lot of like stuff with time jumps and stuff that gets kind of annoying, but like I think Elijah and Klaus are way more interesting as characters, and the original vampires are. And then Klaus
Close.
is such a freaking psychopath. So I really do enjoy him. I enjoyed Joseph Morgan's portrayal. The ending sucks, so yeah, that's a risk. But I like
What
that
ending?
for the originals
There
series
is no
finale.
war in Bossing Say.
Okay. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. But anyway, the show is really good because I like the idea of creating a character who really is a monster. There's never like Klaus never really gets, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, better. He's not like a nice person. He's never a good person. He just is very dedicated to protecting his family. But
That
you
is the
can relate to him because some people are that like ride or die for their own family. So you're like, you do terrible things and literally tear the heart out of the chest of people and you just don't give a shit, but you're a really good dad in certain ways and you would die for your siblings and stuff. So I get it. Like you do terrible things, but I like my family too. So there you go.
and see, I will admit I am ride or die for Klaus and Elijah for different
I like
reasons.
Elijah
I
too, but not as much.
I love I love both of them. I based my Elijah in Tempered off of Elijah in the originals. Um, the thing with Klaus that always got me was he was unashamedly a bad guy.
Oh
He's like,
yeah.
I will do what I need to do to protect my family, and I will smile while doing it
Oh, definitely.
because he's protecting his family. Elijah is a different side of that coin, whereas Elijah will manipulate and work behind the scenes, and he puts up this prim and proper posture to try saying that fast.
I will not. I will pass.
Yeah, so he'll be all like prim and proper, but then when push comes to shove, he's getting just as bloody as Klaus. And that was a wonderful dynamic between the two of them because Klaus is like he is the pit bull. Well, I shouldn't say the pit bull because that has bad connotations, and I'm sorry for all pitties out there. They are cute and adorable, and I know one that is just like the cutest little thing when he's not trying to slobber all over my desk. But
Yeah, no, totally. And they used to be called nanny dogs. They were like in the 20s, the dog that guarded your kid was all cuddly. So to be fair.
yeah, to be fair. um but no, Elijah is the snake laying in wait. Meanwhile, Klaus is like, ding dong, I'm the problem. What's up? Let's
I think
square
there's a lot of sympathy for
up.
Elijah because he doesn't get to do the tearing stuff apart or like
Yeah.
just tearing into things because he can't because he's the
He has
sibling
to
always
clean up
on
after
cleanup because he's
Klaus.
got to manage Klaus. He's got to manage Klaus all the time. So he's got to take care of his brother messes every minute. Like the whole principle of the
Every
show, the
other
originals, is that
episode.
Klaus made a mess, and so he spends like the rest of his life cleaning Klaus's mess up.
A breakdown of their relationship. I want to kill the thing. You cannot kill the thing, Klaus. I'm going to kill the thing. You cannot kill the thing, Niklaus. I've killed the thing.
Let
Damn
me fix it. Let me clean it up.
it.
Saw this coming in the last 1,000 years.
Yes, I adore Klaus and Elijah. Um, I enjoyed Marcel. That's because Charles Michael Davis, that smile, that
He
smile,
does. Oh my god, you'd be
that
like, yeah, that's
smile.
great, and then he'll be like, I just killed you. And you're like, oh right, that's distracted.
Yeah.
Shiny white teeth, very shiny teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. That smile is just like, I sat through a Christmas movie. You know how I feel about Christmas movies.
Yeah, I
I
know.
sat through a Christmas movie just to watch this man shirtless and smile.
Well, it's probably worth it if you could park your brain and forget about the dialogue for 90 minutes. To be
Yeah.
fair, when you talk about the original, I have seen Legacies. I know it's all contentious because people don't like Hope, and I get it. It's totally fine. And the way the show ended it for the originals, I think it was to serve Hope's story and whatever they wanted to do for the spinoff with Legacies than it was the actual intent of having dealt with the originals,
Yeah.
which really sucks. But as its own as a show, I like Legacies a lot. I mean, it's a stupid idea of like basically ripping off Harry Potter. So it's like, you know, boarding school, and LRX running it now, and they've got witches and the three races that they usually have, rich witches, sorry, my brain's blanking, werewolves and vampires, of
Vampires.
course. But then because Hope's a tri-bred mix of all three, she's special. And then the other guy who's sort of the new guy to town, my brain is blinking, who ends up, everybody thinks he's human and just like a complete dud, has other stuff going on with him, and that's kind of the mystery of the first season. And she also sort of has a crush on him. But I like the vampires on um I'm sorry, my throat's a little dry and I forgot to bring water. But I like the vampires on Legacies a lot because they're just not like the ones we've seen before as much in the universe, and in a way because I think they're allowed to be like, they're kids. I mean, they're still teenagers.
They're allowed to be
Whereas,
teenagers.
yeah, because when we first meet like Stefan and Damon, they look like teenagers, but they're 150 years old. They literally went to the Civil War, blah, blah, blah. But these are people who got bitten, so they're new to this whole thing. I assume at some point they, you know, just weren't walking around child vampires because that's not how the mythology of the show works or the universe works. So, like, with MG, whose name, bless his heart, is Milton Greasley, he's this adorable kid, and he's trying really hard. He's kind of like the prefect in Alaric's like assistant, and he comes from this very religious family. Like his father is like a minister down in a big church, and so what his mother did was just say, "We're sending him to boarding schools." Like his dad didn't know, so like they have a whole episode in the first season where he goes home to see his dad on spring break, and he's like, "I'm just going to tell him. I'm just going to tell him," and it goes terribly to the point that he in the Vampire Diaries universe, you can thrall people and make them forget things. So he compels them. He compels his
Yeah.
own dad to forget what he told him about being a vampire and just keep thinking he's off at boarding school because it's so traumatic for him.
Yeah.
But he's also dealing with, even though he's such a sweet, gentle, mild kid, he's kind of the kind who gets addicted to human blood because he was given some just like in a, like, you know, a snuck package of it, not like drinking from a person at first. And then so he deals with sort of the ripper type tendencies that Stefan does. And then his friend Caleb is like sort of the one who can be more like blunt about things and was like, hey, we should try human blood, but the one who can also step back. But he's also the one who never is afraid to call it like it is to um Alaric as the professor and the headmaster and say, look, this isn't working, you know, you want to say this, but you're not like meeting the needs of the student. So, and it's a lot of different solidarity dynamics. um it's a lot of found family between Caleb and MG as well, because MG's own family has really cut him off, but Caleb's family still embraces him, even though he's like a vampire. So then over spring break, after the thing with his dad's a bust, he just goes and hangs out all summer with Caleb and like kind of crushes on his sister, which is awkward because obviously Caleb doesn't want like his, you know, it's even if they were humans, like your best friend
Yeah.
can't hook up with your girlfriend. So like it's just different to see the dynamic of, honestly, MG is so sweet, but he's like not the guy yet. And you always think vampires are always like the dude and they've got all the like the suaveness, and MG's like growing into like suaveness, but he's getting pretty good at being clutch at plans and stuff. So it's nice to see them sort of in a place where they're fumbling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's one of those, from what I've seen, is that the legacies, it allows the kids to be kids.
oh yeah,
And I'm totally down with that. But I will admit I only watched one episode.
I think the way they got there was frustrating because I'm like, they didn't have to sacrifice Klaus and Klaus's whole story and arc to like get to legacies. Like that's not fair.
I'm not gonna lie. I watched the first episode of Legacies, and by the time I was done, I tweeted, Klaus, Elijah, and Haley did not die for Hope to become such a prissy, entitled little snot.
True. She gets better, but she has a lot of walls she has to start breaking down through there. I have not seen a lot of the second season because I've been so busy.
Yeah.
Um, but the first season she breaks down a lot of walls and actually starts, you know, hanging out with the other kids and not just being like, I must like save myself from pain wall. So that's like good. I'm secretly hoping that eventually Hope and not Lizzie, Josie Saltzman get together because they like have crushes on each other and it's adorable.
Okay.
So we're like a generation late of Caroline Klaus, but they're really fun together. So ethically dubious part witches. Um, so
Okay. Other vampires that have inspired the world. Um, I really have like no format, and I'm like I was trying to think of like a way we could structure this, and I'm like, vampires that we love, vampires that we think have inspired a lot.
I think because I'm such a horror movie buff, that going back to this movie it's kind of obscure, and I know a lot of people haven't seen it, but the people who have, you can always tell with the way they craft their vampires going forwards, is a movie from, I think it's 87. It's actually by the woman, I swear to God, who directed The Hurt Locker. I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. That was one of the first movies she ever directed. I think she and James Cameron were still like married at the time, so he's like, here, have half the crew I always use, or whatever. Catherine Bigelow, that's it. And
Okay.
so it's like, it's got Lance Henriksen, it's got Bill Paxton. Like, I say this because you know who these people are because you see them in Aliens and blah 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 blah. And so it's this movie called Near Dark, and it's kind of billed as like a vampire western. It's not literally, because it's set contemporary in the 1980s, but it's basically this gang of bad vampires. It's like Bill Paxton, and it's the sort of the younger wild one, and Lance Henriksen is the older one, and they have like a, I think there's like a sort of a wife vampire, and then like a girl, and the girl escapes and she bites, of all people, Adrian Pastar from Heroes. And then he's got to figure out a way to, like, by the morning, kill the vampires, or else he'll become a vampire forever. You know, one of those, if I kill like the head vampire
Yeah.
or something by a certain time, I don't get to be a vampire forever. But
Night
it's
King.
yeah. So it's set out in, like, I don't know, some godforsaken part of Nevada or New Mexico, or it's one of those states where everything's super dusty and hot. So like
Yeah.
that's sort of where the Western influence comes in. But once the sun sets at night, it's like very much this very gruff, you know, they're not your usual vampires. I mean, not until like the 1980s, because we're thinking, coming off of like that, most vampire culture had either been um, Dracula or some of the Hammer horror films,
I
or
was
to an
about to say
extent
the old
Interview with the
school
Vampire.
when, well, Interview with the Vampire came out in the 90s.
But the books were like in the 70s and 80s. So like there wasn't that, it still
Okay.
wasn't that
Yeah.
romanticized grand estate kind of dude. It was like, hey, we literally drive a truck that we have to paint black at night so we don't, or for the morning so we don't get burned, which is very much the thing that Spike does with the DeSoto, is clearly an homage to Near Dark. And like, we have leather jackets and we go to bars and we murder everybody there. Like, it's very much a different type of aesthetic.
Okay.
So I think if you see that kind of, hey, we just are guys in leather jackets, you like murder the shit out of people and we don't care, and we're whatever, that aesthetic definitely can be traced back, especially in films since then, and TV shows, to Near Dark. And the way it took it was like, yeah, we're just dudes in the desert trying to eat people.
From dusk till dawn.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, obviously From Dusk Till Dawn takes it to a completely different level, and they are like half
They
snake
are a whole
vampires.
Mayan temple of
Yeah.
vampires. Or I may be mixing up my
No, you're
cultures,
not.
but
They're like,
okay.
because there's the snake dance, and
Well,
Selma
see,
Hayek like can sort of, and they look like, half of them look like, kind of, some of them will look bat faced, but some of them will literally look like Selma Hayek will look snake faced when she sort of
yeah.
shifts.
Yeah, and it's all literally it one of the shots when it's panning out after at the end of the movie. When it's panning out, you see that the bar was on top of, there's a cliff behind there, and you see that the whole temple pyramid is in the mountain on the cliff.
Yeah.
So yeah, um that's one of my guilty pleasure movies, simply because, you know, Selma Hayek looks awesome in friggin' everything that she does, and it's like, I just want to dance around with a snake and put my foot in Quentin Tarantino's mouth. I'm just saying. um,
Yeah, pretty much. Sometimes we all want him to shut up, but
yeah.
that's what that's where we're going with it. So, you know, those are pretty iconic, and more like a, they're just going to murder you way, and they're not gonna, when you get down to it, be attractive. They're just going to murder the fuck out of you,
Yeah.
which you not necessarily see as much. I think another thing that comes to mind when I think of vampires is and it's not original to any, maybe if it's original to anything, I guess, is that show that I didn't really see except here or there on reruns on Sci-Fi. Sorry, Sci-Fi, but they spell it wrong, so you know I'm gonna call it Sci-Fi. is Forever Night, which is I think an early vampire show from the 90s, like 92, 93, something like that.
Oh, I love
But it kind of started, it's the first one I can think of that blends together the genre of I'm a vampire and I'm a detective, which of course Angel borrowed for in the first few years when it's Angel Investigations before they go work at Wolfram and Hart. And then there's a anime I love that's pretty obscure, but I have the DVDs for. I saw it, the first time I ever saw it was in Bolivia. So it was on their like anime channel, which if you want props, is watching anime that's in Japanese to hear, but the subtitles are in Spanish, and then you got to translate them in your mind to English so you figure out what's going on. So that was a 3 language pile up.
achievement unlocked.
Yeah. So it's called I looked it up. It's called Nightwalker, Midnight Detective, and it only has 12 episodes, but I really enjoyed it. So he's a
Oh my
vampire
god.
detective, but
Oh my god. I wait a minute. I think I have I don't have it, but I think I saw it. I think I remember seeing it in
he has like
college.
this girl who starts working for him who's like super perky and like obviously like she knows he's a vampire, but she's like sort of like just really perky all the time. I'm like, why are you so perky? You know what he does. And she's just like this little ray of annoying sunshine for him. So like if you remember that kind of setup, that's definitely her.
Oh yeah, and she was like totally in love with him and
Yeah.
yeah, and I was about to say I remember this. He has purple hair. He has
Yes.
purple hair.
Yes, which wouldn't even delineate you much in a Japanese anime, to be fair. But it was one I was super obscure. I never would have seen it if I hadn't been living in Bolivia. And I was just like, which is a weird statement because you're like, how did you see something that was Japanese in Bolivia? But whatever. But I really enjoyed it. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I just remember really liking it. And
Mhm.
then, of course, it didn't last long because there's this era sort of between where Angel and Buffy went off, and then Twilight hit it big maybe 5 years later, where vampires couldn't like carry water to save their soul. Like no one was like watching. I guess True Blood also, but that didn't come till after Twilight hit it. So like there was one on Lifetime called Blood Ties, which is based on a series of novels loosely that were fine. It was
Mhm.
about like this vampire named Henry who teams up with a cop named Vicky who's going blind. Like she's not blind right away, but she has like a degenerative eye disease or something. So like that's kind of their dynamic as he helps her solve crimes because I think it amuses him. And then also, which lasted maybe 2 seasons on Lifetime, and I
Okay.
saw parts of the first one. And then Moonlight, which is very much a ripoff of Angel and a lot of the dynamics of Angel, but is cheesy in its own way. So it's kind of fun. But that one came out during the writer's strike year in like 2007. So even though it only lasted 1 year, it only has like 16 episodes because it was truncated. So it's
Yeah.
super cheesy, but it's not like a bad cheesy. It's just obviously when you watch it, you're like, huh, I could be watching Angel.
Yeah.
But between the like 5 shows, I would definitely say that like Vampire Detective is kind of its own like so much of a trope or a subgenre that now it's like it's a little cliche. I mean, which makes sense because if you go back to actual noir novels and movies and films and short stories, you know, it's a dude sleeps all day, works at night in the seedy elements, usually of Los Angeles because where a lot of noir is set, and you're not really going to question a dude at night who's like tracking down leads that he's not human or is human because everybody's seedy and weird at like midnight in the middle of LA.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits the genre in that way anyway because it's so much took place at night even in like in a noir, so it's a natural marriage. It's just that between Forever Night and then Angel and some of the lesser ones you still have that like pattern of every so often. I would say even of all things, and this is a deep dive, the attempted very short-lived television series of maybe we only had like 4 or 5 episodes that actually aired of Kindred the Embrace, like the
Oh no,
actual.
13 episodes. The whole thing aired. I have the
Okay.
whole thing.
Oh yeah,
No, the
I've seen
whole
it on YouTube, but I was just like, how could people have watched this? I mean, it was Aaron Spelling, so you go off on it because you probably remember. But you could argue C. Thomas Howell in that is kind of a
Okay.
detective vampire.
Kindred the Embraced. That show was a wonderful hot mess
Yes.
with C. Thomas Howell trying to be the hard, gritty human detective who is in love with this woman, and he wants to bring down this club owner that he knows is dirty. He has to be dirty because of reasons.
And that's about as specific as I gathered from the first few episodes I watched. That Thomas Howell knows, like, C. Thomas Howell, that's all he gets. Like, other people are like, obviously this dude's a vampire, but like the
No,
audience knows.
and it's like the audience knows he's a vampire, and Kindred the Embrace comes from, I anyone that's watching in the comments, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, Kindred the Embrace came from a tabletop RPG
From
where
Vampire
you
the Masquerade, I think is the
yes,
full title. Yeah.
Vampire the Masquerade. It came from there, where you have the different clans of vampires. And this is one thing that I thought was really, really interesting. And the Legacy of Kain took it to like a whole different level, but I'll get into that a little bit later if you want me to.
Sure.
Um, with Kindred the Embrace, with this, you have 5 different factions. They all have their own sort of motif behind them. Where I don't remember any of the names or anything, but Julian was the head of one, and his people were all prim and proper, and then you had um I I want to say
Sorry, I
his
can't help
name
you on
is,
this one.
I know his name is Jeff Co I want to say it's Jeff Coburn or something like that. I know he was in that movie with Lou Diamond Phillips, The First Power, where he was just like, see you around, buddy boy. And it creeped me out for forever and a year. And he always plays a really good bad guy. His clan, they are disfigured, sort of. Then you have another clan that they're all the rowdy biker type, because they're the closest thing to werewolves, but they're not technically werewolves because they're still vampires. But if you look at the trope of werewolf, that would be this clan. And where it goes, C. Thomas Howell is in love with this woman, but he ends up finding out, because she's being so secretive. He's like, it has to do with Julian. It has to do with the leader of this, blah, 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 blah. Come to find out, she is the ex-girlfriend of Julian, so she is a vampire. She's been so shady because she's been trying to keep the vampire world away from him, and vice versa. So all of that is going on, and then you have Julian ends up with this niece, Sasha, and she ends up falling in love with the lieutenant of the biker clan, and one of the other rival clans takes Sasha, turns her into a vampire, so now she can't be part of her family's clan or the dude that she's in love with, because she has to be in that clan. It is a hot mess, and I love it.
Yeah, no, and I should say that it's definitely one of those.
It is a
It's
soap opera.
oh yeah, it was made by like Aaron Spelling, post 90210 success, but before I guess he figured out a slightly better way to combine the supernatural and the everyday and something for good or ill, like Charmed, which was popular enough to run for 8 years. So it's slowly from, it's not sexual in that way because it's for primetime TV, but it's the slowly from Skinamax level acting and like clothing choices and like very early 90s. Like it feels like a time capsule of what it is.
Yeah, it's a time capsule of the 90s.
But I think you bring up something interesting, and I was Googling because I could not remember. I remember I had seen it, but I hadn't remembered like what it was called.
Uh-huh.
But it's there's a documentary from Amazon Prime that I watched one day because I was bored as hell, and it's free to stream actually. It's if you have Prime, but it's called World of Darkness. So World of Darkness is a documentary that looks at the history of making you bigger, looks up the history of like how Vampire Masquerade came to be, like literally the development of the RPG game and then its popularity that they did not expect, and then how they spun it off into not just other things, because I think the werewolf stuff comes from that, because they have a separate one for werewolves but I can't remember its full real name. And then how the series grew out, like the TV show grew out of that, but wasn't ultimately all be kind successful. But it's really interesting to see, because again they're saying at the time when the RPG came out, it was all Dungeons and Dragons, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you wanted a different type of fantasy, you couldn't do anything but high fantasy. And so it sort of changed the way you could tabletop. And in a way, it was a more inclusive community because, they're vampires. So like there's a lot more often not just race but also gender and sexuality that comes in by their very nature. So it's
Yeah.
also a very different and open community in a way compared to some of the stuff with Dungeons and Dragons that just wasn't as flexible. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting evolution of that. But I think one thing you hit on, which is the different races, which I see a lot comes up in books. Like for example, in the Harry Dresden Files, there's like the red court and the white court and like some other ones, but the red court are the ones who are more traditional vampires who like suck blood, and then his half brother's like white court, so he like has psychic energy that he can drain. So eventually, instead of having to do that from someone in a more difficult way, of all things, his brother becomes a hairstylist because you touch people for a little bit at a time instead of like just sexual energy. So it's like it's very cute, but like you see that too. Like even if you look at something like What We Do in Shadows, which is a parody, and I have not seen the TV show, but I just know I've seen the movie, and they've sort of got the one who's the Nosferatu looking rat faced, all bald, huge teeth, can't really look human anymore.
Yeah.
Vampire who lives in the basement or their closet or something. But like having the idea of like, here's the ones who are the Nosferatu ones, and here are the ones who are really hot, but if they shift, they can drain your blood, and here are the ones who are psychic vampires. Like I feel like the Vampire Masquerade started we have the different bloodlines you're saying who do
Yeah.
like different things and functions with our society and can pass, so to
Yes.
speak, to different levels as human or not. I think
Yeah.
they were the first place I really saw that as a hierarchy or heard of it coming from there.
That was the first place, and where like I mentioned before, I'll touch on that now. The video game Legacy of Kain did that. Legacy of Kain is an action RPG. The Legacy of Kain series is an action RPG. That game flipped a lot of tropes on their head, because and you would love the story behind all of it. I'm just saying. Um, the first game we meet Kain. He is this nobleman's son. He's murdered at the beginning of the game. He is this in the world that they live in, balance is kept by these 9 people. They are called the 9 pillars of Nosgoth, which is the world that they live in. The keeper of time, the guardian of time, he comes to Kain and he's like, "You're dying right now. I'll give you a deal. The guardians are going crazy, because what happened, they have somewhat of a hive thing going on, where if one descends into madness, they all end up descending into madness. Um, so they go, and he's like, "Hey, I'll make you into a vampire. This, that, and the third. You kill. If you get rid of all of the guardians, peace will be restored. Balance will be restored to Nosgoth." So you have the chosen one trope. So Kain is like, okay, well, he's gonna do his vampire thing, and he's sucking blood, killing guardians, and he does it in such a cheesy way. This is a game for the original PlayStation.
Oh, I can see
Um,
how cheesy level that would be, even though I'm not a gamer. I'd be like,
right.
oh, that's some old school.
Yeah. So you play through the game and you're finding out all of these pieces of what ended up happening. And I won't get into what exactly happened story-wise. What I'm about to say is a spoiler for the end of the game, but if
We'll
you
mark
know,
this as a spoiler episode because we definitely spoiled most of Vampire Diaries, or like essentially the Colossus arc. So like there'll be like spoiler warning
yeah.
for y'all.
But also, if you know anything about the Legacy of Kain series, this what ends up happening in the first Blood Omen game, it's an iconic moment in video games, because here you have the chosen one. Here he has been going through the entire game. You defeat the last boss, and then you find out that Time Guardian, he's been manipulating time. He's been going back and forth throughout time. So even though he's already dead, before you killed him, he went to go see you after you killed him. And he shows up and he's like, "Yeah, there's a small little caveat I never told you. Once a guardian dies, the new guardian is born." And Kain is like, "Okay." When Ariel, the guardian of balance, died, the first guardian, when she died, you were born. So you have some of her madness, some of the madness that infected all of us. So now you have a choice. you're either going to damn Nosgoth, the world that you've been fighting so hard to save, or you're going to or you're going to have to kill yourself. Cain is like, I love Nosgoth. This is my home. This is, you know, where this is my life. This is what I've been doing. I've been trying so hard to make things right in the world, and now you're telling me I have to kill myself? The place is gonna be damned. I'm just gonna rule everything. Bump this. He didn't say it quite like that.
He's like, I'm not dying.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He doesn't. And as a matter of fact, vampires thrive. And here's where we get into part 2 of the Legacy of Cain series, Soul Reaver. There's 2 branches of the series. One branch is Blood Omen, and that follows Cain as the protagonist. Then you have Soul Reaver, who follows another character, Raziel, where Cain is the antagonist. Raziel, like I said, the vampires end up evolving over time. Cain rules over all of them. Cain has 7 different disciples. His lieutenants. His main lieutenant, his right-hand man, was named Raziel. Raziel went through his evolutions. They all had their own clans. They all had their own things. Here's where the different races comes into play. They all had their own different elements because we're dealing with video games. So naturally, we have each one controls. One can go into water, another one can cast illusions, another one can deals with fire. So you have them split up that way. Raziel evolved, and he did something that Cain did not have. He ended up growing a pair of wings. Cain did not like that because he felt that was an evolution farther than his. So, being the wonderful, loving vampire that Cain is, he rips the bones out of Raziel's back and has him thrown into the abyss, where he knows Raziel will basically boil alive for eternity. What Cain did not know is that there was a deity hidden in that abyss, and he told Raziel, he's like, I can restore you back to life. I can take you off of this wheel of torment and send you back into the waking realm, but you have to be my soul reaver. You have to kill Cain. You have to do this, that, and the third. So now Raziel is set on a path to go and hunt Cain for revenge and for this deity. He has his wings are the cartilage and everything. It's just all muscle, limp, no bones, no nothing. He does get a gliding ability, which is like really messed up when you think about it.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's the face of that's so sad.
yeah.
Awful.
But no, it's a great series when you look at all of the pieces except for Blood Omen 2, because that was a huge retcon that Crystal Dynamics, the game developers, they kind of went wrong with that one. But otherwise, they go into it is a very intricate plot the way they did it, and I do enjoy it, except for that Blood Omen 2. That's the only one that I'm like, yeah, no, we didn't need this. So yeah, that's where I learned about the different races of vampires. And then then there was the explosion, because it's like, okay, vampires, they wax and wane. I see.
They do. They come in cycles for sure.
Yeah. In the 80s, you had like the Lost Boys. And I know, yeah, you had the Lost Boy type, where it's like the ones that you were saying before in the movie that you had mentioned.
You're dark.
The Lost Boys totally fit that category. So does Fright Night. Because that's the one with, isn't that the one with the kid who his neighbor's a
Yes,
vampire? They
it's
did the remake with
85.
him.
It's Roddy McDowell's in it. William Ragsdale plays Charlie Brewster, right? Yeah, and it's really fun. I mean, it has a little bit of, I would say, Salem's Lot in it because his next door
Hmm.
neighbor has that sort of setup with the human familiar, and he's got the antique house, blah blah blah. But then he, is also sort of the story of it's a vampire in suburbia because he's like, my next door neighbor must be killing people. He must be, and he's right because he has seen
Yeah.
it. But of course, no one even believes him, including Peter Vincent. And I'm not usually a big reboot fan, but I do think that like the 2000, I think 11 or 12 version that has David Tennant in sort of the vampire killer role. It's a sort of long in joke story, but he's kind of like a Chris Angel wannabe, and he's being paid to like help Charlie, and he's obviously completely out of his depth. But also, um, gosh, the late, what is his
Anton
name?
Yel
Yeah,
Anton Yelchin.
yeah, he's great in that too. And even as much as I like Chris Sarandon is more like a seductive vampire type, I really like Colin Farrell's like one of those type of vampires who's gonna fuck you up, and it's just you're just gonna be dead. You're just gonna be dead. So like, that's fascinating. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I like that one. It's one of my favorites. I think it's
Yeah.
really fun. I also have like a long-standing love for Roddy McDowall because he was in Planet of the Apes. But the whole movie, that's how I saw it the first time. The whole movie is like it's super fun. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine because it's like in that, that's the camp that you saw of vampires in the 80s. Then in the 90s, you had, that's where, I know in Interview with the Vampire, the books had been out for a while, but that's where I really saw vampires going from, oh no, don't bite me, to bite me, please.
Oh yeah,
Um,
because how could you say no to Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas,
because
I
no,
guess Tom
you
Cruise?
had, in the 90s, you had Bram Stoker's Dracula, you
Mm-hmm.
had with Gary Oldman, like I said before, because he was just awesome in that role.
It's almost like they have a very sweeping, literally gothic remakes, and like I've heard someone call it sort of like for good or ill, the analogy of like it's the Gone with the Wind of vampire movies for Interviews with the Vampire, not because they had to do historical period detail and grand costumes and sets in New Orleans, and it looks like a historical drama. It is a historical drama, but people are
I
biting
was
each
about
other.
to say it is hysterical.
Yeah, that's you. But like it has all that sumptuous, like, but like you could tell that both
Yeah.
for Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula and for um Interview, they put some serious money into it to make it like a real thing, like Hammer horror, but on steroids, and with like a Hollywood budget, and it was very
Yeah.
sweeping, amazing.
Yeah. So then you have like the romanticizing of the vampires. Then in the 2000s, like the late 90s and the 2000s, you had From Dusk Till Dawn, you had the what is it, 28 Days of Night and
30 days, I
30
think.
Days of Night.
It wasn't in February. No. We had Buffy as a
Um
TV show, so they're there, but they're more
yeah,
punk rock
you
and
you
daily.
had Buffy as a movie, you had Buffy, because yeah, it was that hot mess movie. I listen, the late great Rutger Hauer, I heart
It's
him.
true. He does a good job in
So
that.
he did a good job because he and Pee Wee Herman were like the only two that knew
Pee Wee
what
Herman was the
movie they
best.
were.
His death scene is still the best part of that movie.
It's like they were the only,
You done
just
yet?
kidding.
No. Cut to him during the credits.
But no,
Great.
it's like they were let's face it, they were the only two that really really knew what movie they were in.
Oh, they definitely knew what movie they were in.
Everyone else
Pee
is
Wee
like,
Herman
no.
totally knew what movie he was in. And Rutger Hauer's like, is there more scenery to chew? You can always chew more scenery. But if you're gonna be like a vampire king or whatever who's seductive or a leader of a whole evil vampire, cool, you gotta choose scenery, guys. Like you
Yeah.
gotta be big. Like even in his own way, I think it's not the same kind of. It's not
Uh-oh.
campy, but even in the Lost Boys, Kiefer Sutherland has this very
Oh.
expansive, larger than life presence. But when you're like the head bad vampire, however you're gonna take it, whether you're gonna basically pull people's spine out like Lance Hendrickson, or you're gonna be seductive with like a vampire snake, oh, or whatever. whatever you're doing with
No,
things.
no, no. I was saying Russell Edgington.
Yeah.
And
Whenever you're doing that kind of stuff, you've got to be bigger than life. And if you're just going to sort of half do it, like the rest, I guess, of the Buffy cast at the time in the film, you got to own what you're in. You got to own it.
yeah, because you said about the ripping the spine out. That is one of the most iconic Russell Edgington scenes like ever. That was his main introduction into the True Blood world, where vampires are living with humans, and they're supposed to be all like, hey, copacetic, and we're going to do this, we're going to be whatever. Russell Edgington goes on, he breaks into a new studio on live TV, rips out the anchor spine, sits down, and is like, you sit here and think that vampires are your friends. We're not. We will eat you. We will eat your children. We are coming for you. um all with this dude's spine in his hand. He's like talking with his
Well,
hands.
it's very
and
illustrative.
and this dude's spine is in his hand, and then when he's done, he just looks dead at the camera. He goes, and now the weather, Tiffany. And the whole episode goes off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that
Exactly, because if
right
you're gonna be a
there.
vampire, you're gonna own it. You're gonna like have take no prisoners, and you gotta be over the top. So for
Yes.
all its crappiness in the Buffy movie, Rutger Hauer is he gets it. He
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
all of it.
But you had like the wave where they had turned back into monsters,
Yeah,
but then
because even if you are back with the Buffy days and you like Angel, like Angelus is I don't like the dichotomy. Like I feel like you're yourself whether you have a soul or not, because Spike could like
yeah,
control the shit. I'm just saying, but like even if you're watching Buffy within like a year or two, he loses his soul, and then you're like Angelus is a monster. Like he's out there killing people all over the place, and people the Scoobies care about, and they're like, no, 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 he's a monster. Like there's no like middle road in the 90s and early 2000s. Like these are
yeah,
monsters. Like they might be
yeah,
hot, but they're gonna kill you.
yeah. And then you had as much as it
We're gonna do it. We have to do it. You have to talk about it when you get to vampires.
yeah,
We have
Twilight.
to. Yeah,
Twilight.
but the books and then like the movie. I think the first one came out in like 2008.
Yeah. And that started the re-romanticize. That honestly, Twilight is one of the biggest reasons why I cannot watch the Vampire Diaries. Because
Yeah,
because I read the Twilight books. I did not read the Vampire Diary books. I have no interest in reading the Vampire Diary books. Um a lot of after it was like YA really wasn't on my radar before Twilight, and then I read
I feel like it
Twilight.
wasn't on a lot of people's like. Yeah, there's Harry Potter, but that's almost more middle grades because they start when they're 11 or 12.
Yeah,
So, but then Twilight's like, oh, YA is like its own thing now, like its own genre, or like
yeah,
subgenre. Young
yeah,
adult for anyone who might not know what a YA is.
but it totally wasn't on my radar. But then after that, it was like, okay, well, I'll give this a shot. I picked up three different books in three different YA genres, and it's all this love triangle, push pull, who do I pick sort of thing. And I'm like, no, we should not be teaching young girls this. Like,
I can understand how love triangles develop, and that if you're 17, 16, sometimes it's hard to make. I find it hard to make decisions about even like job choices. Not that I ever get them, but like I can understand being indecisive in certain ways because you're like not sure it's your first type of relationship or your first time you're having these feelings. That's a dot dot dot. But like the way the dynamics are created in that particular in those books because they follow that Twilight formula is both dudes are douchebags and either choice is unhealthy, and it gets to all this weird posturing territory stuff, and then the
yes.
girl in the middle often,
She
I'm
often
not saying she
chooses the
friend
one.
zones or like plays their emotions, but sometimes there are cleared things like at least Bella did where she could have like said, even if Jacob wasn't listening because he's very stalkerish, she should be like, we're done, like, I he's back, Edward's back in town, I was lonely, I missed someone, I was using you, which is too mature to say if you're like 17. I get that in some ways, but like the whole triangle dynamic, even if it may grow out of normal reaction to human indecision, it's toxic for all three people involved.
But see here, and see, here's also my issue again. aside from the fact that, I kind of want to hit Bella with a brick.
Well, we all do.
Um, when we first meet Jacob, he was like 13, wasn't he?
He is 2 years younger than she is. I think in the book she starts as 17, so he's 15. Yeah.
Okay, because they made it seem like in the first book he was way younger.
I think it's only 2 years, but I could be wrong.
Okay,
I think it's
because
just two
I'm
years and he
like,
hadn't hit his growth spurt yet of like, hi, I'm a giant wolf and now I'm like 6 feet 6.
yeah, you know what? No, if I went and I told my nieces this. I have nieces. My child is about to be 18. I have nieces that are over the age of 18, and I have a nephew that he is about to be 18 as well. I have told all of them, if I have had to change your diaper at any given point in your life, you will always be a child to me. I have told younger cousins, if I have had to babysit you, help you with your homework, teach you how to spell your name, you will always be a child to me.
That's true. Well, of all things, I can't imagine Twilight Saga as a book series being pedophilic in any way. And that is not just like Edward and Bella or Bella and like relationship with Jacob. It's Jacob and Renesmee because she's a baby, like literally just like 12 minutes old. But no pedophiles here. Oh, I killed her.
No, not in any way.
Ultimate deadpan. No, it's fine. And I mean, I could talk about Twilight all day. I will spare all of you most of my rants about it because it always bleeds through. Because again, eventually when you talk a lot about romance writing, you bleed back to 50 Shades, which is just a lineal descendant of
Yeah,
control, find, replace for names, and take out the word vampire in Twilight and replace it with the word bondage. But I think it's where you started really seeing the romanticization of stalking as love, because
yeah,
everything Edward does is a red flag. And then they kind of retcon Jacob's personality by book 3 so that he's also a giant walking red flag. I'm gonna kiss you because I know you like it, kind of like literal lines like that. So you're
yeah,
like, she's choosing between one dude who's abusive as hell and another dude who's also abusive and manipulative as hell. And at the top of that, they're not just guys, they're supernatural beings who have way more strength than she'll ever hope to have. So if she tries
yeah,
to punch Jacob in the face because he kisses her and basically assaults her, she breaks her hand. Like there's
yeah,
no real recourse for her.
yeah. So, yeah, um, we
And
had that.
I'm gonna confess a couple things about Twilight because I like to watch the movies sometimes with like riff tracks for fun because they're awful. At least the first two. Like I think I would maintain that the first Twilight is a hilarious comedy because he gets into the field and he's like takes off his shirt and he's sparkling. He's like, "This is the skin of a killer," and I'm like, "This is like no other vampire ever. You don't understand that. Just I sparkle like a disco ball is scary. It's not
The
at all.
memes were great.
They were amazing, but there are a couple things I like, and you're probably gonna hate them, but I do like that this she inadvertently kind of created side characters who would have been interesting if they'd been the stars of the book.
Yes.
Like I find Jasper as a idea of like a post Civil War cavalry. Sorry, I was getting these words mixed up. Cavalry member out there fighting evil vampires in the desert and like in the new sort of Wild West. That's cool. Like I
Give
know
me
it's sort of a
Jasper
Kill
and
Bill ripoff,
Alice.
but Rosalie is basically uh Beatrice Kiddo, but in like 1920 she gets like beaten and hurt by and other things that I won't say because whatever, she will be like yank, but all the things you can imagine by her fiance and his gang of ne'er-do-well friends, and then she takes her revenge and is very dramatic and leaves at the last minute to kill him in her wedding dress. Like I would read the hell out of that book. But
Yeah. But no,
even
we get
Carlisle is like an interesting idea of a character because he starts with like the vampire court and he's great friends with um
the
the
Volturi.
three. I can't, they're
The
not
Volturi.
triumvirate, there's something else. What?
The Volturi.
Yeah, I was gonna say the vampire Illuminati, but yeah, the military. and like he leaves
Push
them, and then
them
he decides
together.
to become vegetarian, and he's a doctor, and how do you be a doctor around blood? And like he could be a really interesting character if you dug into him. Like she creates inadvertently all these side vampires who are like super interesting. Alice, I think you're mentioning, who's
Yeah.
a psychic, and in the books it's much more interesting about people who abused her psychic gift with her first sire and stuff, and there's a lot of history there, and you're like, that's all super fascinating. We know with Drusilla and Buffy how interesting it can be to be someone who's cursed or blessed with future vision and foresight in being a seer, especially in more superstitious times, and how that can affect you as well. And then add that into your own vampiric nature. And none of that gets explored. It's like, here are all these interesting people with like these dark ass backstories, and you're like, we got this instead. And you're like, wait, I want to hear about like vampire bride killing people.
I would have, okay, so that the audience knows, I am not happy that Midnight Sun is coming out because I was not a fan of the first Twilight series. I don't need to see everything from Edward's point of view. I really don't, because really all that's
It's
going to
cash
prove.
grab.
Yeah, it is a cash grab, and I do respect Stephanie Meyer because, it is her story. She wants to do it. More power to you, sister. I'm not going to block you, but
But I also feel like stupid because it got leaked. She couldn't put it out before
right.
whatever. But also with stupid freaking El James, who like limbos under the
Yeah.
standards bar. She did the same idea first with Gray, and you're like, it's this common fan fiction trope. You see it a lot in writers who came out of fanfic to begin with, the
But
other
see,
POV. But like, if she
but
wants to write it, yeah, more power to you to write Midnight
yeah.
Sun.
But no, also when it came to the whole Gray versus Midnight Sun, Stephanie Myers came out and announced, "Oh, I'm going to do this book from Edward's point of view." And then E.L. James is like, "Oh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing."
And it's
It's
like
just that she
Meyer
got it
had to
out
stop because it
quicker.
got leaked, and she got kind of screwed at the time, you know.
Yeah.
But El James is like, I'll just beat you to the punch like a couple of years later, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. So, I'm not thrilled that this is coming out. So I will say that. If she came out and said, "I'm doing another book in the Twilight universe. This one is going to focus on Rosalie and
Emmett,
Kellen Lutz."
Emmett.
Emmett,
It's
okay.
fine. Kellen Lutz is fine. That's the name of the actor who played her in the movies. But like, I feel like that's the same thing now.
Yeah. I'm going to focus on Rosalie and Emmett, or I'm going to focus on Jasper and Alice. I would be
Byron
like,
Esme is
okay,
really miserable now and is actually leaving Jacob in an underground like network of freedom. I would get it.
Rosalie decided to like off Jacob. But no, it's like stuff like that. I would say, because it's a new story. It doesn't feel like it's the same thing, the same material trotted over
And
again.
to be fair, she did do that already with Life and Death, which is a special 10th anniversary edition, which was a gender swap Twilight, which didn't really it could have been fascinating to see that kind of power. Not the sexual dynamics would still be fucked up, and it would still be pedophilic, but it would be fascinating to see it if she'd really dug into what it means to be a different gender role. And for in this case, it really was Edith is what they renamed Edward as a woman, as a girl in that. But to see like someone who grew up and was like alive, and last time they were human was like 1918 when there really wasn't any power for women or voice, and then to be a supernatural creature, like there could be a lot driven into
Yeah.
that. And Bo, what's expected of him and what he actually is good at, and like what's like to be more quiet and like someone who reads a lot but also has to take care on the domestic side for his father because his father can't cope with reality in a way because Charlie is obviously bumbling through life post-divorce even this much further. Like there's a lot of things that could have been dug into that, and like the power of the female dynamic of things, and like it's just not there. Like it's very no depth in the situation again where you could have explored it, but this is the second retread of the same original story.
Yeah. Now, here's why I had the laughing breakdown of when Ivy mentioned no pedophilia. Um I write vampires. I love vampires. Don't get me wrong. The May December relationship trope, and that's where one person in the couple is way older than another person by a couple of years. I think it's like 5 or more.
Okay, yeah,
Oh,
I thought it
excuse
was like
me.
10, but maybe 5 is right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Enough
Um,
to be, yeah,
enough
different
to be
perspectives.
substantial.
Yeah.
Enough for people in society to be like, hold up, wait, what? Um, in the vampire romance community, I know it's a running gag. Like, what is this dude that's thousands of years old? How is he going to find happiness with this chick that's 21? What do they have in common? Because back in the early 2000s, the majority of heroines in paranormal romance were in that 21 to 25 age range. Now they're a little older. They're about 25 to maybe 30.
Yeah.
But
At least by 30, you've lived some enough of a life to have had some kind, I mean, not compared to like 1,000, but
yeah,
you've been out in the world, you've had to make rent, you've had to like survive on your own,
yeah,
that kind of stuff. You may have had children, you may not, usually they don't, but you've had like a life. If you're like 21, you're like, I just finished college, or I've only been out of my parents' house for a couple of years out on my own, like because I turned 18 or whatever
yeah,
is your thing. Like you don't know your butt from a hole in the ground at like 20, 21. Like this
right.
dude's like 1,000 years old and seen empires rise and fall. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
It can be fun, but at least it's still technically legal, I guess. It's just, what are you
Yeah.
guys going to talk about?
So there's that. And I personally have no problem with that. I can sit back and I've read a bunch of vampire novels vampire romances where it's like she is young and plucky and he is ancient and brooding, and I can get with that a little bit better, with that a lot better than I can get with Edward and Bella. Edward is maybe 100 years old at the time. So was my grandmother was like 95 when Twilight came out, well, when the movies were coming out. And it's like, really, here is this person, this man that is as old as my grandmother. Now, and it does not matter how old he looks, because there are a lot of things in his personality that they don't fit. If you look at it, if you look back at it, and when you're reading it, you don't really notice it, but when you step back from it and you look at it, you're like, this does not fit. Because here is Edward. He is 90 something to 100 years old.
Yep.
Bella is 17.
Also, yep.
Edward has the mindset of, now, I am someone that it's like, okay, pick one. Either you're modernized enough so that you know you are a hot shit at high school, even though you've been to like a gajillion high schools.
Man, if I had eternity, the last thing I would do is go to high school.
Exactly.
I would shoot myself in the face before I had to go to high school again. I'm just gonna be super honest. I'm sorry. I hated high school, and I'm like, I'm not doing it every 4 years. Don't loop forever. That's hell.
Yeah, but he's like going to high. They're all going to high school every 4 years.
It's
They're
crazy.
moving around, and he thinks he's hot shit, but he's a virgin. He's
Well, I'm
come.
not gonna virgin shame. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's your
No,
thing,
that's
but
your
it's
thing.
unusual.
But if you're gonna sit here and, like I said, if you're going to be modern enough to, it's one of those either or. Either
Yeah.
you're modern or you're old fashioned. If you're modern enough to be going to high school, if you're modern enough to be doing everything you can to fit in, you're going on all of these trips and you're doing this and that, and you have all of these cars and you're flashing all of this money
Oh boy, are they.
and you're doing all of this utter bullshit. If you're going so far as to stalk her and watch over her as she sleeps, like standing over her bed,
So creepy. It never
you
got less
know,
creepy. It still gets creepy. And it was so creepy to read that from his perspective. That's, I mean, the Twilight novels themselves are like loosely paranormal romance, but if you just read this dude's watching a girl sleep at night and he's like a vampire and he's really hungry, you're like, no, this just flat out horror novel. It's just flat out horror novel.
Look at her laying there, nestled in her blankets,
The blood smells excellent.
sleeping as if she doesn't realize she's a
People don't look
rabbit.
attractive sleeping, by the way. They drool, they talk to themselves, they get bed hair. It's actually like your least like cute time of the day. It'd be funny if you stood there and Bella just started talking randomly about her weird dreams.
Edward, no, you can't eat the cauliflower. It'll.
The whole thing is just yeah, exactly. So he's like, is he 90? Is he actually 17? He's gonna think and act like a 90-year-old. He's had
Yeah,
90 years of life experience, plus he's a vampire who we find out, I'm sorry, by book 4, when he's like, oh yeah, I used to kill people, which duh, he's a vampire. He used to kind of be like vampire Batman, like, or like sort of how in the actual novels of Interview with the Vampire, Louis only kills criminals because it makes him feel better, I guess. But like in the 1920s and 30s, during like Prohibition era, like Edward rebelled against Carlisle and started eating people, but he only ate criminals. So like that's a cool story. I want to see 1930s noir Edward killing like gangsters in Chicago and draining them dry. That's also interesting. But like this is a dude who's like eating like gangsters in Chicago for breakfast, and
I'm
now he's like,
Batman.
okay, I'm in biology with you.
Yeah, that's look. That's how he ended up as Batman.
It's true. I forgot. I forgot. It's like literal now. But Robert Pattinson is Batman. But but yeah, I just he's a 90-year-old dude and she's 17. And I know you're gonna be like, oh, but Buffy and Angel, which A, I never really enjoyed, but B, she's different. She herself is a supernatural being. She has a different type of, to be honest, lifespan expectancy, usually as a slayer.
Yeah,
And she has a physical prowess where she's actually stronger than Angel is. So if she were, or even Angelus, so if she were in trouble, she could defend herself. And Bella has none of those. And also, her like by the time they actually meet each other, I'm not talking about in the second season finale where you see throughout flashbacks where you first originally saw her, but when they actually meet, she's been a Slayer for at least a year, gotten kicked out of another high school. She knows how to like defend herself. She's had life experiences. She watched people she care about dies. Like she's grown up the way someone who's unfortunately
yeah,
a hardened child soldier would have. Bella's a 17-year-old girl who's got no idea what's going on. She's just your average innocent chick. And if Edward did decide to kill her because her blood's so delicious, which is so clearly through at least the first 2 books, he could kill her in like 30 seconds. There's nothing she could do about it. So not even is the dynamic messed up because he's 90 and there's nothing in her life experience or her physical makeup as a human as opposed to like a vampire or a magic creature like a slayer to make her different. She's literally at his mercy, even more so than a woman with a man who could overpower her, with like a being who could snap her neck like a twig if he felt like it, and like she wouldn't even know.
yeah,
So the dynamic is messed up both for age and power differential.
yeah. And also, it's I hate that it brought the genre back. I really did.
You mean of
Because
like
there's
stalking as love or as vampires?
well, I hate that it brought stalking as love to the forefront, period. But
Yeah.
I don't I love romanticizing of the vampires, but I'm not cool with the stalker aspect of it. I'm not cool with the abusive aspect of it, because let's face it, a, a lot of these dynamics are I write my heroines, my vampires usually end up with witches or another kind of being that
Bring
can
something to
hand
the
them
table supernaturally.
that can hand them their ass.
Yeah.
um Even when Gus, minor spoiler, um Gus in my book Tempered, she starts out as human, she does not end up that way. um Even when she was fully human, when she believed she was fully human, she was strong enough to handle Elijah if she needed to, um because of trauma that she had gone through, and because of, you know,
Fighting
her
experience,
own,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah, because of her own bloodline and whatnot, she would have been able to handle him if, you know, they ended up fighting, which I kind of want to write a little writing prompt of them.
I've wanted to start doing writing prompts. Anyway, side note, but the thing is that yeah, and I just don't like the mix of it. It's just there's such a power to, and I guess you could argue that by the time she is bitten and she becomes a vampire in book 4 and she has her own set of powers and abilities, then it is even. But by then
No,
she's
it's not. She's still
an
doing all that.
18-year-old woman forever, I guess girl forever, who's been trapped in an eternal relationship when she didn't really know anything about anything. Like people get divorced all the time. Like, and how can you imagine like in 10 years being like, oh, people want to get out of their first relationships with their starter marriage. Not always, but can you imagine like I can't get out of my starter marriage because now I'm like bound to him as my sire. Like that sucks.
Edward, I can hear you sucking that bag of blood from across the room. I am ready to stake you myself. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm not saying commitment's not great or whatever, but I'm just saying like you're 17. You've never dated anybody before Edward. You're never going to date anybody after. You've never really had life experiences outside of Forks, or like I think her mom's from
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah, like
Well,
Forks or
yeah,
Arizona. Well, they moved around, but like you know what I
yeah.
mean. And like I mean, you would feel in 10, 15, 30, look at how I'm 36 and I didn't know anything at 17. Like you look around in your life experience and you're like, you see things, you go places, you move, you work, you meet a whole bunch of other people. And all of a sudden at 30, you're like, geez, what was I thinking? I was so, especially in my case, just sheltered. And she'll eventually get to that at 30 or 35 or 100 or whatever. And she'll go, there's nothing I can do to like change it. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can do to
Excuse
get
me.
out of it because I'm permanently bound to him. I have a child by him. And again, he's my sire.
Yeah. That was one of the
It's like
going
taking her
back
choices
to,
away before she even knows she has them.
yeah. That was kind of going back to Kindred the Embrace that I did kind of appreciate, even though with the hot mess
It's a
of,
delightful hot mess of camp, but
yeah, even though with all the hot mess, they didn't have lovers turn lovers. Like someone else, if you were in love with this person and you wanted to be with this person, you would have to go to someone else for them to turn you.
you have to be a process, so like
Yeah.
approval, which is actually really
um
smart.
yeah, and that is leading to another thing that one thing that I've noticed when it comes to vampires in paranormal romance, because that's my jam. um Everyone is taking the mythos and they're finding ways to turn it and twist it and make it their own.
Yeah, that's even a trope if you
And
go
that's
to
and that's
TV
because of
tropes.
Stephanie Meyer.
It's called
That's
Our
because,
Vampires Are Different.
yeah, that's because of Stephanie Myers, I do believe.
Some
Because
This is the part that you're going to disagree with. I don't kind of mind that they're vampire X-Men. I don't. I mean, to be fair, if you read the book of Interview with the Vampire, they do call it the Dark Gift, and each of them kind of get something slightly telepathic they're better at usually,
mhm,
except Louis who gets the soul. So I mean, I get it, but like, I mean, she just expanded on it without realizing it. It was like, now you're the Avatar in the Last Airbender. Anyway, and now you have electrical powers because vampires and electricity. I don't completely hate it. I know it's dumb. I know. I don't know. Vampire X-Men. It was kind of fun. I don't know. Help me.
but no,
I
there was
can't. I know I have no leg to stand on, but I liked it anyway. So embarrassed. I'm like, yeah, vampire earthbender. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking, okay, squirrel moment, putting a pause, squirrel moment.
Okay.
um all I can hear is when you're saying that in lightning powers, I'm thinking of Prince Zuko. You're talking about the Avatar. I'm thinking of Prince Zuko, which is leading me to the anime My Hero Academia, because there's another character named Todoroki whose father burned, well, no, Todoroki's mom burned him when he was like 6. and he has a scar that looks exactly like Prince Zuko's. And someone did a fan art at, no, I think it was an actual Halloween card that the artist did, or someone did a really good piece of fan art of Todoroki dressed up as a vampire, and Todoroki has fire and ice powers. So yeah, my head is totally right there, like, okay, Todoroki can be a vampire, yay. Oh man, but okay, going back to that. But yeah, I'm seeing that a lot of places, well, a lot of authors are trying to come up with ways that their vampires are different. Um Sherilyn Kenyon's Dark Hunters are not technically vampires. They're dark hunters. They're a race of hunters that were charged by the goddess Artemis, blah blah blah. Um
I see that in horror too. Like I was gonna say the trend I see post Twilight has been we're vampires but we're not, and the thing that I think of is like Guillermo del Toro's The Strain, where like they're kind of vampires, but it's like a parasite causes it, so they don't quite look like vampires but still drink blood. But yeah,
mhm,
you can go on with the paranormal romance, but there has that trend post Twilight of oh, not only are we not Twilight, we're so not Twilight, we have vampires, but we're not gonna actually really even call them vampires.
yeah. Um I know Lindsay Sands.
Yeah, I have a couple of her books, but I can't remember which ones.
Her vampires were were Atlanteans.
Of course they were.
Yeah. Her vampires are the strain of vampirism. It's basically because Atlantis was supposed to be so advanced.
Are they fish vampires?
No, they're
Oh.
nanobots.
So they're
There
not
are
fish vampires. I'm gonna make fish vampires. Fuck all y'all. Sorry. I'm terrible at not cursing. I'm the worst.
Avantiplasma.
I will well
Oh, you can make them fish people.
fish vampires. I've come to suck your blood. Swims away. Sorry.
It's taking Finding Nemo to a whole different level.
It's like if you're gonna make them Atlanteans, they should at least have like special gills or something after they suck. I don't know. Like you
But
gotta
no,
work with what you got.
yeah, Lindsay Sands, they were such an advanced society. They had nanotech and nanobots, and one lab they were working with nanobots and everything that would um they would aid in the healing of whatever injuries you had. They would keep you at your peak performance at all times, whatever. The only thing is that they replicate at a rapid rate,
You need
and
blood.
yeah, you need blood. They replicate and die off at such a rapid rate, you need to constantly replenish, so you're always drinking blood. um that was how her series dealt with it. And you would think that it would be so dark, but no, that series is hilarious.
No, I feel like when you're Atlanteans with nanobots, you have to lean into being funny. Like you're already suspending disbelief enough without like, woe is my man pain. But yeah, there's definitely that trend of not only are our vampires different in the last decade, but they're so different we're going to use other terms for it and like not quite call them vampires or say it's a virus or say it's a parasite or say it's a
Yeah,
whatever. Like
yeah,
they don't necessarily own it as vampirism, and you're like, it's okay, you can just be vampires, it's fine.
yeah. I my vampires, they got their difference because of Lindsay, but not Lindsay Sands, but because of Stephanie Meyer.
Kind of,
Because
yeah, actually.
yeah, um, I know I had mentioned this in an episode before, where I was thinking about, like, how can I make my vampires different, because you always want yours to stand out and be a little something something. So mine are part of the evolutionary process where they evolve into gargoyles. So because Stephanie Myers, the reason why her vampires sparkled was because their skin was as hard as rock. So it's like, okay,
And
go from
cold
there.
too, so
Yeah.
Bella's having some great sex there with Stone Monolith dude who's cold.
Make his ass sit out in the sun for like all 12 hours. Just go and lay there.
I'm like, it's not my thing, people. It's not my thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, it sounds terrible the more you tell me about Edward.
Another person that did vampires are not like typical vampires, and they actually did it right. And it's another one where the vampires are dealing with are a piece of society, is Nalini Singh's Guild Hunter series. I love that series. That series and her Side Changeling series, I read them religiously. Um I started falling off of the Side Changeling ones because it's now she's opening up the world and it's becoming like way too big.
I hate when that
And
happens. Not in a bad way, just like you can't kitchen
yeah,
sink everything, even if you've been around for a while. It gets hard for people to like deal with too many species at once.
no,
I've
and
found.
it's not even so much too many species. It's that now we're not even dealing with the same group that
Oh.
we've dealt with in the beginning.
Well, then you don't have the attachment to them either.
Right. We get people that we get stories for people that we've seen in a scene or two in the previous 20 books. So now they're getting their own books and they're getting their own focus because we're shifting from one area to a larger area. And it's like, yeah, no, I like it better when it was tighter over here.
But if the publisher says you have to keep writing the series, then that's obviously something she doesn't have control over in that vein.
Right.
Oh, I made
Right.
it funny.
But no, her vampires in the Guild Hunter series is that humans have there are some humans that are normal humans. Other humans have special gifts, whether it be enhanced they have enhanced senses because somewhere down the line they have a vampire or an angel in their bloodline. Vampires can have children within the first 100 years of their life. Um, Vampires are also servants of angels. The world is ruled by 10 archangels. They have their own squad of angels, but they also have vampires. One thing that you, spoiler alert,
Okay.
one thing that you find out towards the end of the first book is that a vampire is made because angels, the older they get, they start producing this sort of venom, and if they don't expunge that venom, then they will succumb to bloodlust, go totally crazy, and just try to eat everyone around them. So in order to do that, they do these biological they everyone in society is tested, and people that are, I don't know, V positive, I guess I'll call it. They don't really say, but they just say if you're compatible or not. But if you're tested and you are compatible to become a vampire, you are V positive, then you can apply to become a vampire. No one knows, like the angels know all of this. The vampires, their minds are wiped, so they don't remember exactly how they were turned into
Maybe it gets to
vampires.
become Venom or like the angel Venom repositories.
Yes. Yes, but the humans have no clue that this is how that they think that vampires are made the way we see them on TV and a vampire bites another vampire. No, it's an angel gets rid of this venom and produces a vampire. So that is so for the first 100 years of the vampire's life, they are in indentured servitude. They are to serve the angel that changed them. They serve them for 100 years, then they are given a stipend, and then they are free to do what they want to do out in the world. um that dynamic was actually pretty it's pretty good. I kind of like it, so yeah. um let's see. So Nalini's saying we have
Well, J.R. Ward has her own spin on things. I mean, her
yeah.
Black Dagger Brotherhood is so famous.
Black Dagger Brotherhood is a whole other vampire is a whole other species. And those vampires, they survive on the blood of the opposite sex of their race. So they can't bite a human and change them. Human blood is the equivalent of eating lettuce, I'll say. It'll hold you over for a little bit, but it's not going to sustain you for a really long time. You're not going to, yeah. Meanwhile, they can go and they can drink from a female of their race, and then they'll be good to go for a good month or so.
It creates a lot of very complicated clan dynamics and roles for the women of their species and other things and alliances.
Yeah, so there's a lot of messes and everything that goes on there too, especially considering, you know, she's going through and she's retconning some of the stuff that she'd written before.
Sorry.
And with some of the retcon, she's doing it in such a way where it's like, okay, you're just going to just not address that. That's fine. That's fine. Totally fine. So yeah. If everyone watching, if you haven't realized, yeah, that's a high contention of mine. Whereas, like, even if you just go and put an author's note at the beginning or the end of the book being like, hey, I would respect that a whole lot more than you just being like, yeah, I'm changing this. What do you mean? No.
People just don't like when you change the rules of things.
Yeah.
And we should have a lesson eventually, or like a talk or a podcast or whatever episode one day about like just how important, especially in paranormal, like once you set your rules, like, you know, don't make them so you paint yourselves into corners, but like be aware that once you paint yourself in a corner, you got to find a way to get back out. That's not cheat.
I still
People
have
hate
not
cheats.
I still have not figured a way out of this corner that I painted myself in with one book.
You'll have to tell me about it later.
Yeah.
Like retcons, it's just people don't like them because they're cheating.
Yeah.
People don't like cheating.
Yeah.
It's like in Misery, you know, she fell off the cliff, figure it out, you know? Like you've got to like play the ball where it lies, guys.
Yeah.
But because then people feel like you're insulting their intelligence, and that's something readers hate because they're like, no, I stuck with you, and now you can't just say, oh, it's that way for 12 books, but now it can't be that way. And you're like, what? If they could have do this all along, why didn't they just take the eagles to Mordor?
Yeah. Yep. Let's see, other vampires that inspire.
I think that we found this pattern where like, and I kind of understand why, because there's such a sensuality in vampires, and there's such a metaphor, let's be honest, for like teeth bites the woman. It's like sex, penetration. I say that we haven't listed any like female vampires that are like really like ones who are in a TV show ensemble like Drusilla or like Darla or something. It's interesting, kinda, but like, and that's from the Buffyverse. But I can't really name a female vampire in like movies or like TV that has the same kind of presence that like, you know, Damon and Stefan or Louis and Lestat or, you know, Spike and Angel. Like it's not that Beale and Eric Northam, like it doesn't usually happen in that sort of way. Like they might be a character on the show with the established universe of a community of vampires, and there's other vampires. So Pam on that is really on sorry,
True
my
Blood.
brain blanked.
Pam is an icon.
True Blood is really fun. I like her. Or like in Vampire Diaries, I really liked Caroline Forbes as well, but like they don't like stand alone as this is our show, this is our like one female vampire, this is our movie, these are like female vampire. Like it doesn't happen as much.
I don't think it's happened at all. I could be wrong, but
I would say that at the time it came out in 1982, Catherine Deneuve's Vampiress in The Hunger was sort of interesting and was very captivating.
okay.
But it didn't, I mean, it was the sort of a thing that took off, not culturally, but it became sort of a thing within the horror community for a while as like and it's still regarded as a very good cult film, sort of like the original lesbian vampire flick. It's not like a porno or anything. It's her, and it's sort of a love triangle between her and her old lovers getting sick, because the way her vampires are different is Catherine Deneuve's vampire can make new vampires, but eventually within a couple hundred years, her fledglings age and become desiccated. so she has to replace him every 200 years. So now, of all people, full circle, David Bowie from Labyrinth and stuff, but David Bowie has become starting to age rapidly and starting to like desiccate. So she has to sort of find, and the next partner she wants to pull into her web is I believe is a cellist who's played by Susan Sarandon. But otherwise, I just can't think of, or you could say like Selma Hayek and like Dustin Hoffman is fun, but there's no like, hey, like a Louis Lestat like counterpart in like female vampires. Like there just isn't yet. I don't know if it's such a mostly female, or in the Chronicles set sort of a queer male fantasy of like I'm picturing as like debonair continental European dude who's so powerful, and we exchange blood, and it becomes sort of an intimate act, and that's kind of like where that resides in. It just, you don't see the same thing with a woman like as like the lead vampirist kind of thing.
You don't. And I'm thinking back, and I may know, I'm trying to piece together the puzzle in my head of why that might be, and all I can think of is again, a another channel reference, not Lindsay Ellis this time. Um
Is it Maven of the Eventide?
no,
Okay.
it is Trope Talks from,
Okay.
well, Overly Sarcastic Productions. They have a playlist, a segment of videos called Trope Talks, which I adore. I made Ivy listen to a couple of them, which were
They're addictive.
entertaining. Um, one of them, a couple of them, bridge together the reason why, probably why we do not have that Louisa and Lestan. What would her name be?
I don't know.
For a Lestat.
Alyssa,
Um,
like, or something. Louisa and Alyssa instead. I don't know.
yeah,
Or female Dracula.
yeah, or a female Dracula. The reason why we don't have that is because until a few decades ago, people, we were, as a writer, you're always told write as you know.
Hmm.
Most people, when they write because they're inspired by things that they read.
Yeah.
Until like the late 70s, early 80s, we really didn't have, and this is not really including romance, but we really didn't have heroines that were the main focus.
It's true.
We didn't have, there were, when people wrote females, there were, what, maybe five types: the the bubbly type, the princess type, the,
Femme fatale, I'm sure, is in there.
yeah, the
Or
femme,
slash stone cold bitch
the
kind of thing.
mom type, the bitchy type, and the femme fatale. That was it. That was the only, and the femme fatale you only got when you needed a woman and she had to be evil.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, the best thing on the planet is a mom type that's evil. I'm just saying that's scary as fuck.
Yeah.
um but yeah, it's like, so I don't think anyone really delved upon like, hey, here's this kick-ass, here are these, not even so much as here's this kick-ass woman, but here is this woman going through the trials or tribulations of going through becoming a vampire for the first time. Because usually when I see it, I'm reading a vampire romance and the dude's already a vampire and he's like, come with me, I will bring you into a world of pure darkness and fighting people, that sort of thing. um so that's why I don't think it's around too much. That may change because the rise of indie authors, if we want it, we write it. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
um One
Yeah.
of, yeah, in Tempered, one of my chevalier, she is a female. So I didn't mention her in Tempered. I mentioned her, I barely mentioned her in Tempered. Like I did like one name drop for Hayden in Tempered.
Yeah.
And I'm working on Crystallize now, and she has like more name drops here. And as her book gets closer, you'll hear her name more,
So
but
you'll be
it'll be
aware of her and primed. Yeah, totally.
yeah, yeah. So it's not like one of those, oh, I want to read her book. Oh, it's not like 4 books out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Okay. To be fair, I guess if you're going with cinema or
Hmm.
movies, I did leave out Celine from the Underworld movies because I consider them crappy action movies at best. But I guess she's the only female vampire who's had enough of her own series of anything to at least be like a named vampire you could tell off the top of your head. So
Yes.
to Underworld fans, I am sorry that I undercut her.
I have to apologize too, considering that the DVD is like right here within reach. So I have
Yeah.
absolutely no
So to be
excuse.
fair, there is Celine, but there's definitely room for other female vampire characters to catch to take off. It's just it's been pretty much a continental European white dude domain most of the time
Wait a minute.
so far.
I don't know. I've never read Kim Harrison.
I haven't read a lot of her either, so she may in her books. I think she does, but I just don't follow them, so I
And
wouldn't
I
know.
and I do believe Anita Blake is a vampire, but
I thought she was just still a necromancer who had the ardeur and like 8 million boyfriends.
I don't
Her
know. But
harem. Like I
I didn't.
know she eventually ends up with Jean Claude, the master vampire of the city, but I don't know if she ends up a vampire herself. It got so long, and I just couldn't deal with all like the downhillness of it.
No, that was that's a trope that Pam from True Blood hit on in the series, that I'm like, okay, it seems like these heroines in urban fantasy of the early 2000s, which would be the Anita Blakes, the Mary Gentry, the Sicky Stackhouse, it
Yeah.
all seemed like they all had the magical vagina of power. So I
I
am
agree. I was like, you said it first, but I was thinking it because this was Suki. Suki, the magical fairy who, I mean, literal fairy who like attracts every guy with paranormal powers in the entire state of Louisiana, essentially. Suki.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's
another
a
trope
hot
for another
mess.
day.
Yeah, that's a
But yeah,
hot
so I think
mess
that's
right
one thing.
there.
As if there are whole and things, I still think you sort of have prevailing in pop culture always that sort of bad boy white dude vampire kind of thing, or like continental Gary Oldman style white dude vampire thing. And when I brought up the Vampire Diaries, I mean, sorry, not the Vampire Diaries, but the legacies, I enjoyed MG and Caleb because they're the first African American vampire teenagers that we've seen, or like who
Yeah.
are in like the Fork, or sorry, not Forks, the whatever the name of the town is, I forget it, Mystic Falls. Because we've seen, you're right, we've seen Marcel, but we haven't seen like, oh, we're actually high school students, but this time we're not just pretending to be high school students.
Yeah.
So I mean that I enjoy about them, and their dynamics are a little different because he's a kid dealing with a very like charismatic, like I said, MG, like a pastor father, and so that's a different thing that I've seen.
Yeah.
But in general, it's yeah, it's even more not just as much. It's still overwhelmingly white, but it's I just can't think of a woman unless you're really into Celine and you're a huge Underworld fan. But even she doesn't capture the amount. Like she's kind of like an artifact of an early 2000s time where we're like trying to rip off the Matrix, but not. It's very dated kind of thing. It's not like she had the staying power of like a Dracula or like a Louis or like Spike and Angel or something.
Yeah, cuz that's, and like I said before, usually when we see these these strong women, and I hate to say this, they're in this role where their strength equals their sexuality, and it's like it's
Yes.
not all about that. It
Yeah.
totally is not all about that. You could be, so it's like you have the trope of the magical vagina of power, and I wonder if YouTube will let us get away with that as a video title, because that would
I like to
really
call it the
be a punch.
magical something of power. magical special spot of power, I guess.
The magical V dot dot dot.
I don't know. I'm sure they'll be like, no, our robots found that. So that's sort of general thoughts and patterns. I need to get going soon. So, but if you have
Okay.
Rex, I think we can move on to those for the week. Yeah, that's generally the arc of vampire stuff, at least since the 80s onward, or even if you think of 70s as being extension of like mostly
Yeah.
Hammer horror being gothic, it's kind of like the last 50, 40 years in vampires, especially between movies and books. So
Yeah.
glad to bring you up
Um
to date on those.
okay, my Rex would be um any of the Blood the Last Vampire series. I didn't really talk about Saya this time. But she would be really cool I would recommend um she has the original movie is Last Vampire. I am not talking about the live action movies. I'm not going there yet. That is for the adaptation
Yeah, I
series.
was gonna
That's for the
say.
adaptations, but no. The manga, the manga, the Blood the Last Vampire movie, animated movie, Blood Plus and Blood C. Those are all of those are the different series. Blood Plus is the best and most heart-wrenching one. That is also the longest one. If you want to borrow it when we get out of quarantine, I can definitely loan it to you. I'm trying to inflict Blood
As
Plus on
soon as I get
everyone.
out of quarantine, as soon as I graduate, I have like a list a mile long of things I can finally watch. It's gonna be amazing.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so it's like again, we can continue on with the vampire thing too because I have another manga series that I had. The studio ended up going under, so it is a recommendation because it's really really good, but I also would not want to recommend it because the story is not totally finished, and that would be Vampire Princess Miyu. She is a vampire princess who is charged with protecting humanity from demons. So she's going around killing various demons and trying to find her way. Um, let's see. I recommend that you not watch Priest.
I love that. I have a collection of terrible movies I like to watch while I'm writing. They're just terrible. Underworld is one of them. I Frankenstein, The Covenant, just like terrible, terrible, terrible
I
misfires that I
own
watch in the
those.
background.
I own all of those
They're
movies
terrible.
too.
They're terrible. They're complete classes on how not to write anything
I,
and also what studio interference looks like. And I can agree that Priest is terrible. But in the vein of I know how to choose scenery, I do think that Bones, whatever his name is, um, Carl Urban is like because he's Dr. Bones on
yeah,
Star Trek. But he knows
Carl
how to
Urban is
choose
Black
scenery.
Cat. He
He
does.
does a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible movie, but he knows what movie he's in and he is
Yes.
not backing down at all. Like he is clearly having a good time on a crappy movie.
No, you know what? I think Carl Urban got this and he was like, you know what? I was in Doom, damn it. I'm having fun.
Yeah, I know, right? I was a serious student. I'm gonna make this work. But yeah, so but it's terrible. But if you want to see a terrible vampire western that is not good, that can be your vampire western.
Yeah.
With the
And it has
train,
Beal.
it does have Beale. He is definitely in that. I won't say how long. Okay, so for my recommendations, I was thinking about some vampire movies that are a little bit more obscure or ones that maybe haven't seen before.
Okay.
Number one is one that's late 80s, early 90s. It's a very old Guillermo del Toro movie. It's from Mexico, like when he was still working there and working with primarily Hispanic cast or Mexican cast.
Hmm.
So I believe it was shot in English though, because Ron Perlman's in it. He's the bad guy. So it's called Chronos, and it's basically about an old man who's like maybe mid 50s or 60s. He's got a grandchild, and he takes care of. I don't know where the kid's parents are, but in his antique shop one day, he gets this weird device that almost looks like a spider or a scarab, and it like bites onto him and clamps onto him on his chest, and it makes him into a vampire. But it
Uh-huh.
puts him in the crosshairs of dealing with this sort of I'm not gonna say cartel runner, but he's like a gang guy or a guy who kind of has I don't think he necessarily runs drugs as much as Ron Perlman's just that dude in town who has his hand on every pocket and, hey, nice store you got there. Hate to see anything happen to it. Can I have protection money now kind of racket.
Yeah.
So they sort of go at cross purposes at each other. But it's a vampire film where the vampire mechanism is literally almost like steampunk in origin. And it's a really thoughtful portrayal of the grandfather and trying to keep up his life and like protecting his grandchild and like taking on Ron Perlman's like evil empire. It's really good. It's Del Toro, so you know it's very imaginative even for a small budget.
Yeah.
There's another one that is a remake from I think 2012, 2013 called The Sweet Blood of Jesus, which is also a remake of a movie from the 70s called Ganja and Hess. And it's
Hmm.
an African American vampire story. I think Spike Lee Reed did the reboot, but it's really interesting because it's sort of like this um, professor, and he comes down with vampirism. I can't remember how he accidentally does it to himself. I can't remember. It's like he's attacked and it's just he's near death and it happens to him, or it's something that like he's a professor in like archaeology, so he's always touching the wrong stuff. But it's about him grappling with the changes in himself, especially as a man of like logic and reason and rationality, and then kind of denying it. Then eventually he falls in love with a woman named, I think it's Ganja's the woman, and like brings her into the relationship and the marriage without telling her he's a vampire, and then eventually of course he turns her. But it's really interesting because it's a contrast between one person who can't deal with the change becoming a vampire as he's still trying to cling to his old faith, cling to his old sense of rationality in his career, and then Ganja, how she actually becomes sort of ascended as a vampiress and learns how to like prepare herself for eternity, and the contrast in how people either deal or don't deal with such a huge fundamental change to their nature.
Yeah.
And I think there's one other one I was trying to think of. um Daybreakers, which is not a great movie by any means, but it's sort of one of those like Covenant style kind of cheesy, came out in the mid to late 2000s, where it's like, yeah, we're trying to throw spaghetti at a wall, we got to keep making enough movies in genre to do whatever. But it's Ethan Hawke and I think Sam Neill, and it's an interesting premise because I think a lot of places don't address this problem. But like if you're a vampire who just keeps making other vampires because you've bitten someone, as opposed to sort of like the blood exchange that you see in something like Interview with the Vampire or Buffy and Angel, where you control the population. Like eventually you're going to run out of food because like every human you've turned into a vampire, and so you're kind of like screwed. So Daybreakers deals with vampires in sort of an advanced dystopian society where they're running out of blood and they're trying to make enough synthetic blood, and other problems are arising and because of that. But the real interest there is like, oh yeah, if you keep eating every human, eventually your food source runs out. So those are really more obscure vampire movies that take different angles with it, but are really interesting to watch. So
Yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing the commercials and promos and everything for Daybreakers. I just never got around to watching
it's
it.
not great, but I think the idea behind that they explore is interesting, and the performances are pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, on the don't watch, please. Um, okay, you can watch it if you really want to
Like,
injure
be
yourself
warned,
that
it's
way.
terrible.
Yeah. If you want to injure yourself this way, go ahead and watch it. The Dracula 2, what was it? Dracula 2000 with Gerard Butler.
Yes, which is terrible, but I've talked about it before because I think the idea of what if, spoiler, the reason a vampire in the first vampire couldn't be, you know, around things like sunlight or silver offended him, or the cross, was because he was a cursed Judas Iscariot. Like that idea is really cool, but the execution is really crap. So, but the idea that Judas Iscariot, who was famously about the 30 pieces of silver and blah, 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 in some mythology, silver is for against vampires. It was actually against vampires before it was against werewolves, because that is an invention of 1941 in the actual film The Wolfman. It wasn't in werewolf lore before that. Is because of a Judas Iscariot curse. So it's a good idea, but it's a terrible movie. It's one of those movies like Underworld. It's very much a time capsule of 2000, 2001, with like the punk music and the trying to look like the Matrix, and everybody's got a black trench coat, and it's terrible. But you see a lot of people pop up who used to
Yeah.
be famous or are famous now, and you're like, oh, Omar Epps. Before House, you really were just in anything. Or like a lot of people who you see in other stuff like Jennifer Esposito and um, God help him, I think Christopher Plummer decided to do this because I guess he needed a house payment or something, but he's like a real actor. Nathan Fillion has a small part as a priest, like a little real priest, not like a priest from like the movie Priest, in it. So like you'll see little cameos, people who actually, Gerard Butler's the Dracula, of people who actually eventually got famous, and you're like, oh, you had to pay some dues, didn't you? It's
Yeah.
painful.
Um yeah, yeah, that yeah.
We'll
I would
actually have
I
to do a
s-
podcast on why I watch terrible, terrible movies a lot, just because A, they're great background noise, and B, I learn a lot from going, oh, I won't do this.
well, you sit back and you sit back and I like to mystery science theater them.
Yeah,
I running commentary. My child is like, we need our own YouTube show because just of you watching stuff or you reacting to video games because it is hilarious and people will finally see that I'm not lying when I say that you say this crazy stuff.
exactly.
Um, but no, I find it funny that you're saying that you have Underworld, The Covenant, and I Frankenstein all lumped in as like some of your bad movies when they're all done by the same people.
Oh, they totally are, because I Frankenstein was totally the same dude using the same pattern to try and like make the same
He was trying to
a new
catch lightning in a
franchise, but
bottle.
it's
He
like it
was,
just Control F replace like gargoyles and demons with vampires and werewolves. Like it was totally the same thing.
yeah. And
Totally.
so, yeah, that's what I found hilarious. Even to the point where they got Bill Nighy to
Yeah,
act in
yeah,
both movies.
yeah. I mean, it's super obvious, but it's so terrible. It's wonderful. Like
Yeah.
I am a big fan of so terrible it turned out wonderful cinema. But so that's it for me. What about
Okay.
you, Don? You're gonna lead us out for the outro?
Alrighty. So we will catch you next week. We will be back on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
With everything that has been going on, we may end up making some changes around here. So we look forward to that. Next week will be our adaptations episode. We
A
don't know.
long waited, but definitely still gonna be on schedule, or not on schedule, but like out there, because again, I have so many feelings about. There's nothing worse than a bad adaptation that like steals your hopes and dreams. You're just like
And
you never
then
forget.
and then there's also the flip side of a, an adaptation that you thought was going to be such a dumpster fire, and it actually comes across halfway decent.
You know, that's true. I had
I've
one that
seen
I'd
that.
had no hopes for, and I was like, oh, I like it.
Yeah, I've seen that. And we'll be able to talk about that more next week. So this is Dawn and Ivy saying thank you for stopping by, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. It's like I shouldn't press.